The scene on the deserted road in the heavy rain looked like a haunting painting, soaked, saturated, and filled with the earthy scent of wet soil. The rain poured relentlessly, each large droplet like a sharp blade stabbing into the ground, forming thick streaks of muddy water everywhere. The downpour seemed endless, as if the sky itself was trying to wash away all the sins and dark memories of the people who once lived along this road. Under the dim glow of the streetlights, everything appeared ghostly veiled in a dense fog. Each raindrop fell like a long, mournful sigh from nature, heavy, sorrowful, and filled with melancholy. But amid that stillness, a fragile life was struggling to resist the harshness of the world. It was a German shepherd, worn out, weathered, and aging, chained to an old silent truck by the roadside. Its gaze was like an urgent plea, its eyes shimmering with pain, with rain mixing with the tears in them, reflecting all the hardships it had endured. Once proud and powerful, the dog had been a symbol of strength and loyalty. It had been an inseparable companion to a family, an untiring protector of those it loved. But now all that remained was a thin, trembling figure beneath the rain. Scars marked its body, perhaps, from countless battles fought, now highlighting the suffering and loss it had endured. Muscles that had once been strong were now withered, its once thick fur patchy and revealing wounds still unhealed. The dog's name was Max. Though his physical strength had faded, his eyes still shone with resilience, a quiet strength only animals who have survived immense pain can understand. Those eyes didn't only hold fear, but a faint glimmer of hope, a distant belief in a better tomorrow, a chance at freedom. But at this moment, Max could do nothing but stand still, silently gazing up at the gray, cloud-covered sky, his heart filled with despair. The surrounding scene added to the bleakness. The old truck parked on the deserted road looked like a relic, forgotten and unwanted. Its wheels were worn down, the paint on its body faded, and peeling rust etched deep like stab wounds on the hull of a sunken ship. It was a mirror of Max himself, both survivors of time left brittle and broken. Both the truck and the dog stood as images of what the world had used up and cast aside. Though chained, Max couldn't help but feel utterly alone. He looked around, but the road offered no sign of life. The sound of rain only deepened the emptiness he felt. Drops fell from branches and rooftops, each one tapping against his heart like a slow, painful knock. His ears perked at every distant sound, clinging to a thread of hope. But no one came. No rescue, no savior, only silence and rain. Once Max had been a warrior. In the days when life was still full of light, he stood beside his master with pride, guarding the family from every threat. But now he was no longer that brave protector. He was a shadow of his former self, burdened by the ache of watching himself grow weak and helpless. The chain around Max's neck cut into him, holding him in place. He tried to struggle, but the chain wouldn't budge, deepening his sense of hopelessness. His paws pressed into the muddy ground, trying to fight off the numbing cold of the rain. Though his legs no longer had the speed of youth, each movement was heavy with effort, showing an unrelenting will. Somewhere deep inside, he still hoped that someone someday would come and free him from this prison. Max stared into the distance at the drifting gray clouds. Streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, casting ghostly glows. No one was around. Only the rain spoke, whispering, weeping. Yet in Max's despairing eyes, there was something indescribable: loyalty, perseverance, a spirit unbroken. Even if he was abandoned, even if he was restrained, he still waited. He waited for a miracle, for a hand to reach out and deliver him from suffering. In that moment, Max was not just a dog. He was a symbol of life, of endurance and unwavering devotion. And though all that remained was a wounded soul trapped in the rain, he had not given up. He stood firm, eyes still turned toward the sky. Within his heart, one that had once lived fully for those he loved, remained a belief that when the rain stopped, things could be beautiful again. The rain continued to fall, showing no signs of stopping. Heavy droplets struck the ground, splashing into tiny bubbles before quickly merging into the muddy stream flowing along the deserted road. The atmosphere was gloomy, like a blurred painting devoid of joy, filled only with heavy silence and a strange loneliness. Max, the German shepherd, still stood there, his eyes filled with despair and pain, staring intently at the old truck to which he was chained. The rain did nothing to soothe his wounds, nor could it wash away the coldness of the man who had just stepped down from the vehicle. This man seemed indifferent to the dog's presence. He never looked into Max's eyes, not even once during this time. He merely stopped beside the truck, opened the door, and stepped out with an indifferent expression, as if everything was just part of his daily routine. There was no emotion in his movements, only apathy. His eyes avoided the dog's gaze as if evading the painful look directed at him. His coldness acted like an invisible wall blocking any connection with the creature before him. As the man approached the chain, Max felt a wave of fear rise within him. He had no idea why he was chained there, why he had to endure the rain in this loneliness. But one thing Max felt clearly was the cruelty in the man's every gesture. He didn't treat Max as a friend or companion, but merely as a tool, an inanimate object. The man's actions were clear signs of frustration and contempt. He didn't care about Max's feelings, never once touching his fur or showing any concern, not even a little. When the man bent down to check the chain, Max tried to wag his tail, as if wanting to draw attention to himself. The dog longed for contact, desired to feel the warmth from the hand of someone he had once been utterly loyal to. But all he received was a cold glance from a person who knew nothing of loyalty, unaware of the love an animal could offer. The man didn't look into Max's eyes. He merely bent down, checked the chain, then stood up and returned to the truck without a word. Max felt his heart tighten. Every movement of the man was like a direct blow to his pride. He couldn't understand why he had to endure such treatment, why someone he had once considered his master could treat him this way. While others in the world might find comfort in closeness and affection, Max was left with only coldness and solitude. The silence between them acted as a wall separating all emotions, and Max felt even more the cruelty the man was inflicting upon him. As the man returned to the truck, he merely glanced at Max indifferently without a hint of emotion. He didn't inquire, didn't show any concern. Instead, he ordered Max, his voice cold and devoid of any feeling. "Stay, you useless dog." Those words were like a dagger stabbing into Max's heart. The man's words were filled with contempt, a complete rejection of all the values the dog had offered him over time. Those words tore at Max's soul like a verdict on his failure. Max had no idea that to the man he was merely a worthless tool, a dog that no longer brought any benefit. At that moment, Max felt his entire body go numb. The numbness spread from his legs throughout his body as if he had no strength left to endure. The dog stood silently, unsure of what to do. He could only watch the man's figure fade into the truck, feeling all hope within him vanish. Max couldn't comprehend why someone he had loved and been loyal to could treat him this way. To Max, every glance, every wag of the tail, every bark were efforts to create a connection to be loved, but now all he received was indifference and cruelty. As the truck began to depart, Max felt an indescribable emptiness. The surrounding scenery became even more blurred, as if nothing could save him from this loneliness. The dog watched the truck disappear into the distance. His eyes filled with sorrow and a sense of despair enveloped his soul. The cold rain seemed to penetrate his entire body, but the chill in Max's heart was more painful than any cold. Max no longer thought about being rescued, no longer believed the man would return. He was left with only loneliness, the cruelty he had to endure. All that remained was the silence of the rain and the despairing eyes of a creature with no support in this world. The rain continued to fall, heavy droplets hitting the ground and drumming against the canopy of the stroller in which Emma was sitting. The steady sound of the rain mixed with the rustling of leaves created a strange, haunting atmosphere. Despite the gloomy air and the chill of the rainy season enveloping every corner, Emma sat quietly in the stroller, her wide, curious eyes taking in everything around her. She was a 4-year-old girl with soft brown hair, and an innocent face completely absorbed in the world unfolding before her. Emma's mother, Sarah, walked beside her, slowly pushing the stroller, but paying no attention to what was happening around them. She was preoccupied with a phone call, her voice soft but serious. Every word she spoke revealed how focused she was on the conversation. Sarah didn't realize that a horrifying scene was playing out right in front of them. All she knew was that it was an important call, perhaps a meeting she couldn't afford to miss. She only occasionally glanced down at Emma with a faint smile, unaware that her daughter was witnessing something that would haunt her for a long time. Emma didn't understand that what she was seeing was something frightening. She just saw a dog being dragged along the road, much like the animals she'd seen in picture books or on TV, but to the eyes of a 4-year-old, it was something completely different. Everything was a mystery to Emma, a silent question forming in her little mind. The dog didn't look like the cheerful, lively animal she was used to. It was a big dog, yet it seemed to be going through something terribly painful. Its movements were unsteady each time it tried to stand. It was dragged across the muddy ground. Its golden fur was soaked, and its eyes were filled with despair. Emma didn't know the dog's name, but one thing she could feel for sure: the dog wasn't happy and seemed to be in a lot of pain. "Dog," Emma whispered to herself, her eyes following the dog's every move, then turning to look at her mother as if silently asking why the dog was being treated like that. But Sarah didn't notice. She was still immersed in her phone conversation, unaware of her daughter's worried expression. Emma couldn't fully grasp the seriousness of the situation, but she could sense the pain the dog was experiencing. It was a feeling that even a young child could recognize, even if she didn't fully understand it. The scene continued in silence, and Emma felt a heaviness in her chest as she watched the dog being dragged along. Even though she was just a child, she could feel the helplessness and suffering the dog was going through. The dog's despairing eyes held Emma's gaze, and her curiosity only grew stronger. "Mom, Mommy," Emma called, but Sarah didn't hear. The little girl called louder once more, but still got no response. Sarah merely nodded slightly, her eyes still fixed on her phone, her mind completely absorbed in the conversation. She didn't hear her daughter's voice or realize that Emma was witnessing something terrifying. Emma felt worried but didn't know what to do. Her mother couldn't hear her, and the dog was still being dragged. She didn't know if something wrong was happening or if it was just something adults didn't care about. Emma couldn't understand why a dog would be treated like that, why someone would drag it without caring about its feelings. All she knew was that the dog looked like it was hurting and maybe it desperately needed help. Each of the dog's steps was like a silent cry for help that Emma couldn't ignore. She tried rocking the stroller, hoping to get her mother's attention, but Sarah still didn't look, continuing her conversation. Emma seemed to realize that her mother couldn't hear her, but that only made her growing concern stronger. She didn't understand why her mom couldn't see the dog, why she didn't notice the injustice happening right in front of them. All Emma knew was that something wasn't right. The scene lasted only a few minutes, but for Emma, it felt like an eternity. The rain kept falling and her stroller kept moving forward, but Emma's mind couldn't leave the image of the dragged dog behind. The dog's weak, stumbling steps were like a reminder of the cruelty in this world. Emma couldn't understand everything, but she was certain the dog didn't deserve to suffer like that. Eventually, the stroller moved on and the point disappeared from sight. The rain continued to fall and Sarah was still on the phone. But inside Emma, the worry and unanswered questions about the dog lingered. She couldn't understand why the dog had been abandoned, why anyone would treat such a loyal, loving creature so cruelly. Though she couldn't yet explain everything, Emma could sense that the world wasn't always fair, and what she had just witnessed would stay with her for a long time. The rain fell relentlessly, each droplet pounding the ground like a drumbeat against a hard wall. Emma sat in her stroller, her small eyes filled with curiosity and worry as she witnessed the strange scene before her. Although her mother was still busy on the phone, Emma couldn't take her eyes off the image of the German shepherd being dragged along the muddy road. The feeling of anxiety inside her grew stronger, as if something was wrong, as if there was a call she couldn't explain. In that moment, something strange began to happen. Emma couldn't put the feeling into words, but her eyes and the dog's eyes seemed to connect. Despite being dragged, the dog looked up at Emma, and an indistinct yet powerful bond appeared between them. The dog couldn't speak, couldn't signal her with words, but its gaze said everything. Emma could feel the sharp pain in the dog's eyes. There was desperation, fear, and an unusual loneliness. The dog seemed to be searching for help some way out of the tragic situation it was enduring. Though Emma's mother didn't notice, despite the heavy rain in that moment, Emma could understand something that adults might not see. This dog, despite its suffering and humiliation, was not a mindless creature. It knew someone was watching, and in its eyes, Emma felt a silent question, a plea that couldn't be expressed in words. The dog was no longer the strong, majestic animal Emma had seen in cartoons and books. Now it was a wet, weak, and emaciated figure. But its eyes still radiated an astonishing resilience. Emma felt as though the dog was asking her a big question. Save me, won't you? That question needed no words. It was conveyed through the gaze, through the silent moments between two creatures who had no connection except for this miraculous instant. The feeling Emma had in that moment was difficult to explain logically. Though she was only a 4-year-old child, she could feel the pain, fear, and deep loneliness from the dog's eyes. This was not the empathy of an adult, nor the innocent curiosity of a child. It was a connection that even she couldn't put into words, but it was very real and very powerful. Emma knew that in this moment she and the dog were no longer mindless creatures, but souls sharing something profound. They were two different beings, but they could understand each other in pain. So even though the rain poured down relentlessly and her mother didn't notice and everyone else around her may not have seen, Emma couldn't forget that gaze. She couldn't explain why, but every time she looked into the dog's eyes, she felt a deep stir in her heart. The dog was pleading not only with its weak physical movements, but also with its hopeful gaze. Its look seemed like a message, as if saying, I still believe in the kindness of humans. Will someone come to save me? Emma felt a strange connection, as if there was an invisible thread between her and the dog, a thread stretching across space and time, just waiting for someone to hear that plea. And though she couldn't speak it aloud, Emma understood that she was the only one who could help. Though she was too young inside her, a strong belief grew that she could do something, even if small, to save the dog. That gaze, the dog's sad and hopeful eyes, was engraved deeply in Emma's mind. She couldn't shake the image, couldn't ignore a life in pain because of someone else's cruelty. Even though she was just a child, Emma understood an important truth. The connection between beings doesn't always require words. Sometimes just an eye contact, a true feeling is enough to bring about change. She didn't know what she could do to save the dog, but in that moment, Emma knew that she couldn't turn a blind eye. Therefore, while everything around her continued on and her mother remained oblivious in Emma's mind, everything had changed. She was no longer a child who only observed life through the lens of innocence. She had realized that sometimes a connection can happen in the briefest of moments, even without words. And Emma had felt that through the dog's eyes, a gaze not only pleading for help, but also a reminder about kindness and assistance. A reminder that every creature in this world has the right to be loved and protected. Under the pouring rain, the sound of water hitting the ground was like a mournful melody surrounding every step Emma took. While her mother was still engrossed in her phone conversation, completely unaware of the scene unfolding right in front of her, Emma couldn't take her eyes off the person who was chained and being dragged along the muddy road. Despite being only a 4-year-old child, Emma's heart could sense the pain and despair in the eyes of the German shepherd. The agony in its gaze felt like an arrow piercing her heart, making it impossible for Emma to sit still any longer. She knew what she had to do, even though she was just a child, even though no one would believe that she could do anything. As her mother continued her phone call, Emma did not hesitate. The feeling inside her was so strong that Emma couldn't remain sitting still. Though she knew there was a risk of danger, there was only one thought in her heart: I have to help that dog. Busarin wasn't a rational decision. It was an instinctual reaction from a child who recognized that a creature was suffering and she could do something to change that. Emma looked down at her hands, her small fingers gripping the safety strap of the stroller. She knew she couldn't just sit there letting the dog suffer while she remained an indifferent observer. Without a word, without taking time to think, Emma reached out and unbuckled the safety strap. Her actions were swift and determined. No one around her had time to notice. Only the raindrops fell blending with the deep sighs of Emma's heart as she opened the stroller door. Inside her, there was no room for hesitation, no room for doubt. As soon as she unbuckled the strap, Emma did not hesitate. She tumbled out of the stroller, rushing toward the muddy road where the dog was being dragged. The feeling inside her was like a powerful surge of energy, urging her forward despite the pouring rain. In her mind, there was only one thought to help that dog. She ran quickly, but not fast enough to escape her mother's gaze, when she turned and realized that Emma was no longer in the stroller. Her mother continued with her phone call, unaware that her daughter had left the stroller and was now running desperately toward the dog. But Emma couldn't stop. Every step she took was a brave decision, defying everything the adults would consider impossible. The little girl, fragile compared to the world around her, felt stronger than ever in that moment. Her small but determined steps seemed to create an unstoppable force. Emma could feel the fragility of life, of existence and death, but that only made her more determined. She didn't just want to save the dog from physical pain. She wanted to save its spirit, to bring it some light in the darkness. In the cold rain, Emma could barely see the path ahead. The ground beneath her was full of mud, but she didn't care about the mess or the exhaustion. All she saw was one thing: the dog groaning, struggling to stay upright, but still being dragged by the cruel man. In the dog's eyes, Emma saw something deeper than anything. It was desperation, but also a glimmer of hope. Hope that someone would come and help. And in that moment, Emma was the only one who could do it. Emma's feeling wasn't just fear. It was a fierce love for life, for creatures that needed to be loved and protected. Every step she took toward the meaning was a relentless effort to change the world, even if just for a moment. She had decided to act not just to free the dog from its pain, but to restore its faith in human kindness. To Emma, the dog wasn't an inanimate object, but a living being with emotions, with life, and deserving of compassion. As Emma approached, the dog didn't look at her with surprise, but with a look full of hope. It was as if it had realized that in this cold and cruel world, she was the only one who could save it. The dog's eyes and Emma's gaze seemed to merge in a sacred emotional moment. Emma knew that her actions might not change everything, but they would change something important, at least for the bond that needed help. Emma didn't hesitate. She stepped closer to the dog, unafraid, not thinking about what might happen next. She knew she was doing the right thing. Emma reached out and gently stroked the dog's back, feeling its rapid breathing, the strong thumps of its heart. The sensation made her heart flutter, an unspoken connection. And in that moment, Emma knew she had done the right thing, not only saving a life, but also saving a part of her own spirit. In the pouring rain, the atmosphere around Emma seemed heavy and gloomy, but she no longer cared about that. With her small hands, she felt the strength of her determination, leaving no room for fear or doubt. Beneath her feet was a muddy road with dirt scattered everywhere, but Emma no longer saw it. She only focused on her one mission: to untangle the chain that was tightly constricting around the neck of the dog, which was in pain and despair. Emma's gaze never wavered. She bent down near the dog, her hands trembling but resolute. Her tiny fingers touched the chain, searching for a way to undo it. Every movement Emma made was not easy, but she didn't think about giving up. Every twist or pull on the chain made her hands feel the difficulty of the task, but in that moment her heart burned with an unstoppable flame, full of passion and perseverance. Emma knew that no matter how hard it was, even if she couldn't do it immediately, she had to try. At that moment, the German Shepherd, tired in pain and desperate, began to sense the change. When Emma gently touched the chain, the dog didn't fidget or try to resist. It just stood there silently, as if knowing that the little girl was trying to help. Its eyes, once full of despair, began to shine not with fear, but with a faint hope. The dog sensed the kindness and compassion in every action of Emma. Its gaze softened, and a feeling of safety emerged not from the cruel man, but from the little girl standing before it. Emma clearly felt that the help she was offering the dog was not just a physical action, but a deep connection from the heart. She was not just untangling a physical chain, but also loosening invisible barriers to fears within the dog. Emma's hands were trembling, but her heart never wavered. Every action she took was filled with love, born from deep empathy. When her tiny fingers finally found the lock of the chain, a sense of relief passed through her. However, she didn't hurry. Slowly, piece by piece, she carefully untangled each loop of the chain. The dog stood there, its eyes now bright with hope. In its eyes, there was no longer fear, but appreciation. Although it couldn't express it in words, its gaze seemed to send a heartfelt thank you to the little girl who was tirelessly working beside it. The rain continued to pour down, but in this moment, both Emma and the dog seemed to drift into another space where only the two of them existed, a miraculous connection between two beings who had never known each other before. When the last loop of the chain was finally undone, Emma felt a happiness that words couldn't describe. Though only a 4-year-old child in that moment, she felt strong and incredibly important. She had freed the dog from its captivity and pain, helping it find freedom, even if only for a brief moment. Emma's small hands, though not strong enough to do everything, were enough to make a difference, enough to change the fate of a creature in need of help. The dog didn't move immediately, but stood there looking into Emma's eyes with gratitude and respect. It seemed to understand that someone, even just a child, could do what the adults couldn't save a life help without expecting anything in return. Its gaze contained empathy and a sense of peace, as if it had found a friend, a protector it could trust. Emma stood up, looking at the dog with a gentle smile as if she had accomplished an important task. Though everything around her was still soaked and the rain continued to fall, the warmth in her heart was irreplaceable. At that moment, Emma didn't feel lonely or afraid because she had done what she believed was right. She knew that no matter how cold and cruel the world might be, there were moments like this where love and help could change everything. The dog, now no longer chained, shook its head as if feeling the freedom. It looked at Emma one more time, its eyes lighting up in a strange way, full of appreciation. And in that moment, the two small beings connected in a way that only the heart could understand. Although many challenges lay ahead, at least now, both Emma and the moth felt a new spark of hope, a belief that not everything in this world was bad. When the dog stood there, its eyes still a little worried but full of gratitude, Emma smiled gently and said, "Brave." The name came to her naturally without thinking, as if it had been born from this very moment. The dog, though still fearful, seemed to understand that this new name brought it hope, a new beginning, no longer the chained dog or the useless dog. Brave wasn't just a name, it was a declaration of courage and freedom that the dog deserved. Emma bent down and looked at the mum, her innocent eyes full of warmth and unconditional love. She knew that she hadn't just helped a creature in pain, but had created a special connection, a friendship that didn't need words. "Brave," she called again this time, as encouragement, as if to say that the dog had done very well, even though the journey was still long. The dog, though not fully understanding all of Emma's words, felt the change in how the little girl treated it. Its eyes brightened, no longer worried like before, and for the first time in many days the dog felt safe. Though its body hadn't fully recovered, and its fear still lingered in every step, Brave, like the name given to it, no longer felt alone. The dog looked at Emma with eyes full of gratitude. From that moment on, Emma and Brave began to build a special relationship that words could never fully express. Though not fully familiar yet, every time Emma looked into Brave's eyes, she felt a strong connection, an understanding between two hearts. One just 4 years old and the other a dog that had been abandoned and had endured so much suffering. The dog, though still fearful, had started to get used to Emma's presence in its life. Every time Emma walked, Brave followed behind like a loyal friend. The dog was no longer chained, but instead chose to walk beside her, protecting her in her early steps. Every time Emma looked back, Brave stood close by, its eyes fixed on her as if saying, "You don't need to worry, I'm here." Every step Emma and Brave took was a step toward a new life where love and connection could heal deep wounds. Emma began to realize that the dog was not just a simple companion, but a protector, not as strong as the fierce hunting dogs, but still with a magical strength, the strength of affection, the power of unconditional loyalty. Day by day, though, the rain still fell and the sky was often cloudy, Emma and Brave were no longer afraid. The dog was no longer a chained creature, but a trusted friend, a companion. Whenever Emma felt sad, Brave would come close and quietly sit beside her, as if to say, "It's okay, you're not alone. I'll always be here." Over time, the bond between Emma and Brave grew stronger. The dog not only protected the little girl when danger approached, but was also a loyal friend, always there whenever Emma needed. Emma's feelings were not just love for the dog, but a deep respect and absolute trust in the power of loyalty. She had helped the dog, but the bush had also helped her find courage, finding a friend she could trust in any circumstance. Every morning when Emma woke up, Brave stood beside her bed, wagging its tail as if greeting a new day full of hope. And every evening when Emma went outside to play with her friends, Brave would always be behind her, protecting her from any danger. Emma realized that even though the world could be harsh and full of challenges, with Brave by her side, nothing was impossible. Together, Emma and Brave created a small world where love and loyalty were the forces that overcame all barriers. Both a little girl and a dog had found in each other protection, support, and a sincere friendship that nothing could replace. From the first moments when Emma helped Brave escape from the painful chain to the point where the two could not be separated, that friendship had become an inseparable part of both of their lives. The dog was no longer an abandoned creature, but had become part of the family, a part of Emma's heart. And Emma, though only a small girl, had become a big friend in Brave's life, the one who helped the dog overcome fear and find joy in the new days ahead. Together, they not only found safety and love, but also learned the most important lesson of life. Sometimes a true friendship can change the whole world. One morning, as the soft sunlight streamed into the room, Emma and her mother Sarah sat in the kitchen enjoying breakfast together. Brave, their dog, always nearby, lay at Emma's feet like a loyal companion. Sarah smiled as she looked at her daughter and the dog. Everything seemed perfect and peaceful, but there was something Sarah still didn't fully understand about Brave. That feeling haunted her, as if Brave wasn't just a dog who had been abandoned, but carried with him a story that had yet to be told, a secret yet to be uncovered. She remembered the first time Emma had found Brave, the worried looks the dog had exchanged with her, and the strange feeling that they had formed a bond at first sight. This wasn't just an ordinary friendship between a little girl and a bum. There was something deeper, a strong connection she couldn't explain. What had made Brave so special? One day when Sarah took Emma to the vet for Brave's health checkup, she received some information she never expected. The vet, who had been Sarah's friend for many years, asked strangely, "Do you know that Brave was once a special training dog?" Sarah, busy tending to Emma, simply shook her head. "No, I didn't know. I thought Brave was just an abandoned dog." The vet raised an eyebrow. Actually, Brave was trained by a special organization. It was one of the guard dogs trained to serve as a witness in important legal cases. Brave's body and behavior were taught and programmed to assist in legal situations. I recognized this when I saw a few distinctive signs on him. Sarah froze, unable to believe what she was hearing. She turned to look at Brave, who lay quietly beside Emma, his eyes still gentle but holding a deep sadness. "A witness, a case," Sarah repeated, a hint of confusion in her voice. "That's right," the vet continued. "For a long time, Brave worked for the law enforcement. He wasn't just an ordinary dog. There was a major case in which Brave was an important witness involving an international crime syndicate. After the case concluded, Brave was transferred and retrained to become a family dog, but for some reason he escaped and eventually ended up with Emma." Sarah was stunned by this information. She couldn't imagine that Brave the dog they had brought home and raised as a family member had a past linked to a major case and may have witnessed things no one in her family knew about. Sarah felt a deep sympathy for Brave for what he had gone through and unease about the dangers he might have faced. When they got home, Sarah decided to look further into Brave's past. She started asking around friends and people connected to the case the vet had mentioned. After several days of searching, Sarah received a call from a man, a lawyer who had once worked with law enforcement on the case Brave had been involved in. He told her that Brave had witnessed a serious crime, and the information from the dog had helped the police apprehend dangerous criminals. "This dog is not just a pet," the man said on the phone, his voice serious. "It's a living witness, an essential part of the investigation." When the case ended, Brave was kept and retrained to keep silent about what it knew. However, there's some information about the case that Brave may not have completely forgotten. Sarah felt as though her world was collapsing. Brave the dog, who had shown so much loyalty and love to Emma, carried memories no one could have anticipated. Sarah wondered if Brave had witnessed terrible things, events that no dog should ever know, and whether those secrets could affect her family. In the days that followed, Sarah became more anxious. She decided to take Brave to a specialist in animal psychology to help the dog overcome the painful memories. She didn't want Brave to suffer any longer, and more importantly, she wanted to protect Emma from any dangers that might arise if Brave's past were to be revealed. However, the more Sarah learned, the more she realized that Brave wasn't just a trained dog. It was an important witness, and once his past was revealed, there would likely be people trying to exploit the information from the dog, not just to solve the case, but for more sinister purposes. But in Sarah's heart, there was no doubt about Brave. She knew that despite its tragic past, this dog was still a part of their family, still the loyal companion who had protected Emma all this time. Even though Brave may have seen horrific things when it was with Emma, the dog showed nothing but gentleness and love. Sarah decided not to let Brave's past separate it from their family. No matter what happened, Sarah knew that Brave would always be Emma's most loyal friend, the one who had helped her through hardships and would protect her in every situation. But one thing was certain: the relationship between Emma and Brave would never be the same. It had become something more than a simple friendship between a girl and her dog. It was a bond between a protector and the protected, between a witness and a family who had welcomed the dog into their hearts. And no matter what secrets Brave carried, its love and loyalty would always remain unchanged. The sky darkened as if signaling something ominous. The warm, sunny days were gradually replaced by cold winds howling through the window. In the small, peaceful house on the outskirts of town, Sarah was preparing dinner. Emma sat beside her, scribbling colorful pictures, while Brave lay quietly at her feet, his eyes fixed on the door as if waiting for something or someone. At that moment, the doorbell rang. One ring, then two, long and firm. Sarah wiped her hands and walked to the door. Before her stood a tall man with short cropped hair, wearing a thick gray coat and a long scar on his right wrist like a burn. His gaze was sharp yet sincere. He held out a small metal badge. It wasn't a police badge, nor a typical military one. It had a strange symbol, a hawk soaring. "Excuse me, are you Sarah Wright?" His voice was deep and infirm. Sarah nodded, feeling uneasy. "I'm Adam Reyes from the Alpha 17 Special Unit. I'm here about your termag, Brave." Brave suddenly stood up. His ears perked up, his body taut like a bowstring. No barking, no growling, but his eyes glinted with intense alertness, a reaction Sarah had never seen before since Brave came into their home. Adam stepped inside, looked directly at Brave, then turned to Sarah and Emma. "We need to talk, immediately. There's no time to waste." Sarah took Emma upstairs and returned, her face filled with concern. Adam wasted no time with pleasantries. "Brave is not just a witness. He's the only living witness to a special attack that happened a year ago. A team of mercenaries infiltrated a top-secret military research facility. In the chaos, Brave, then known by his codename Echo 9, was part of the internal security team. He didn't just witness the event, he reacted in a way the cameras couldn't capture. He identified the mastermind who has been missing for a year. Sarah stood frozen, her lips moving. And that person is looking for him. Adam nodded slowly. We believe he's still alive and is trying to eliminate any evidence that could uncover the case. Brave is the final target. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. She looked upstairs where Emma was quietly singing, her childlike voice drifting through the house. So, we're in danger. Very serious danger, Adam said. We've detected tracking signals near this area. Someone has traced Brave. And when they realize Brave is no longer at the training facility and is living with a civilian family, they won't hesitate to do whatever it takes. Sarah felt like the floor beneath her was shaking. She had never imagined that their simple, peaceful life could suddenly be pulled into such a dangerous whirlpool. She thought of Emma, the innocent girl who had loved Brave from the very first moment, and now that bond might make her a target. Adam continued, his voice now firm. I know you're worried, but I'm not here to take Brave. I'm here to take your family to a safe location. We have a secure facility. Only those with biometric codes can enter. There we can protect Emma, protect you, and protect Brave. We can't just keep hiding, Sarah protested, feeling like she was losing control of their life. Adam shook his head. I'm not asking you to hide. I'm asking you to live. Brave has chosen Emma. That means he sees something in her beyond orders or training. Brave has never bonded with anyone after that attack. Until he met your daughter. That's not a coincidence. Sarah went silent. She remembered Brave's look that stormy night. The desperate look when he was chained to the rusty truck, and the hopeful look when Emma placed her small hand on him. Now she understood. Brave hadn't just been saved by Emma. He had also placed his trust in their family, hoping for one last chance to live as he should. So we have to leave tonight, she asked, her voice trembling. Within the next 2 hours, Adam replied. I've prepared a vehicle and a safe route. From now on, you cannot use your personal phone, access social media, or disclose your location to anyone. We've lost 2 witnesses just because of a careless photo. Sarah nodded slowly. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was no longer in control of her fate, but simply a mother doing whatever she could to protect her daughter from a cruel world. Emma was gently woken up. She rubbed her eyes, hugging Brave as usual. Sarah bent down and whispered, We're going on a special trip, just you, me, and Brave. Emma nodded, fully trusting. But Brave was different. He understood. He looked at Adam, then turned to Sarah. In his eyes, there was a mutual agreement. He would go not just for himself, but for Emma, the one who had made his once barren heart warm again after many dark months. In the next 2 hours, the small family was loaded into a disguised truck and left the home that had once been their haven. Adam drove them down empty roads, never turning on the GPS, never stopping. Every small sound outside made the atmosphere in the truck grow cold. Sarah held Emma close, one hand resting on Brave's head. A new journey began, one of survival, trust, and love beyond all danger. And through the entire dark road, there was one certainty: Brave would never let anyone harm Emma. The night was as if it swallowed everything. The gray-silver camouflage truck sped along the deserted mountain road, the sound of the tires grinding over the wet asphalt and the howling wind echoing through the pine forest. Sarah sat in the back, holding Emma, who was peacefully asleep in her arms. The little girl had her head resting on her mother's shoulder, still clutching Brave's collar, as if she didn't want to part with her special friend, even in her dreams. Brave lay next to them, wide awake. It was alert to every breath. Its ears were perked up, eyes constantly scanning through the side window. It knew danger was approaching. The air was heavy, like a storm was about to break. And this time, Brave wasn't just a dog running away. It was a warrior protecting the family it had chosen to stay loyal to no matter the cost. Adam gripped the steering wheel tightly, eyes fixed on the radar screen on the dashboard. A small signal flickered. He frowned. Damn it, he muttered. There's interference, 2 kilometers behind us. They're tracking the heat signature. They can't be that fast. Sarah jerked up in alarm. Who are they, the mercenaries you were talking about? Adam nodded. They're not just regular soldiers, they're black ops. No names, no nationalities, no history. They're only loyal to money. And right now, Brave is worth millions to a few people who want to erase the evidence. Sarah tightened her grip on Emma. What do we do? Adam stepped on the accelerator. There's an alternate path leading to a hidden base, but we've only got 15 minutes to get there before the satellite tracking pinpoints us. If we don't make it, we'll be trapped between 2 pursuit routes. Brave stood up, walked over to the dashboard as if understanding the situation. It growled quietly, not out of fear, but because it was preparing for battle. Suddenly, a loud explosion sounded behind them. The truck lurched. A plume of black smoke rose from the edge of the road where they had just passed. Sarah screamed, "They planted mines!" Adam held the wheel steady, swerving the truck onto a narrow trail. They don't want to capture us. They want to end it all. The vehicle barreled into a bumpy, muddy path. The trees on either side blurred past the windows. Every time the tires slid through the muck, the truck swerved, threatening to overturn at any moment. Emma suddenly woke up. She rubbed her eyes and quietly asked, "Mom, is Brave scared?" Brave turned its head, nuzzling the girl's hand. Sarah stroked her daughter's hair. "No, sweetheart. Brave is very brave. It will protect us." Emma smiled and closed her eyes again, but this time her sleep was as fragile as a leaf in a storm. Behind them, the sound of engines grew louder. Not one, but 3. Adam glanced in the rear-view mirror. Sure, they've split up. One vehicle is coming up ahead to block our way. With no other option, Adam pulled the truck to the side and opened the rear compartment. "Get out, now. We're walking through the forest. It's 1.3 kilometers to the station." Brave leads the way. Sarah grabbed Emma and Brave leapt out in front, sniffing and guiding the path. The night forest was dense and damp. Thin mist lingered close to the ground, making every step feel like sinking into a gray dream. The noises behind them grew closer. Occasionally, headlights swept through the trees, forcing them to stop and hold their breath in silence. Emma whispered, "Mom, I hear people talking." Adam signaled to stop. The group crouched low. The sound of boots crunching on dry branches grew near. A deep voice with an Eastern European accent spoke. "The signal stopped here. Check all directions. Don't leave any trace." Brave looked at Adam. Without a command, it dashed to the rear, distracting the pursuers with a long howl, then sprinted off in another direction. The soldiers immediately gave chase. One yelled, "Movement, 9 o'clock, follow it." Sarah whispered fiercely, "No, Brave, we'll get shot." Adam held her back. "Trust it. It knows how to escape." They continued through the dark forest. 400 meters, 300 meters, 200 meters. Adam pushed aside a tangle of vines. The entrance to the secure station appeared. It was a steel door buried underground, only illuminated by the infrared light from Adam's hand device. He placed his finger on the biometric sensor. A small beep echoed, and the door slid open, revealing a glowing tunnel leading downward. "Quick, go in," Adam urged. Sarah and Emma retreated inside. Just then, a loud noise came from behind. Brave charged in, covered in mud with a long scratch on its front leg. "Brave!" Emma screamed, ready to run to it, but Adam grabbed her and pulled her inside. Brave slid into the tunnel just as Adam sealed the steel door. A heavy thud resonated, signaling the end of their intense chase. Inside, the station lights flickered on. The atmosphere was cold but safe. Sarah collapsed into a chair, holding Emma, who was sobbing over Brave. Brave approached, limping, but still walking with its head high, as if trying to reassure them. "Everything's going to be okay." Adam checked the security systems. "We're safe." at least for the next few days. Sarah looked at Brave, her eyes filled with gratitude mixed with horror. If it weren't for him, if it weren't for you. Adam shook his head. You're the one holding this family together, but Brave, it's why I believe that sometimes the bravest warriors don't carry guns. They carry loyalty. Brave lay down on the cold steel floor, resting its head on Emma's legs. The little girl bent down and whispered, Brave is my superhero. And in that moment, underground, surrounded by cold steel amidst ever-present danger, a bond of friendship, a connection between human and animal, between life and hope, had been forged in fire and blood, in tears and faith. The sound of metal clashing reverberated through the confined space of the underground station. Adam stood in front of the security control panel, staring at the thermal surveillance monitor. Red dots slowly moved around the area near the tunnel entrance. The enemies hadn't given up. They were trying to breach, impossibly using vibration mines, ultrasonic cutters, or simply waiting for the group to be forced into the open. Sarah sat next to Emma on a resting chair, her eyes heavy. She glanced at Brave, who was lying nearby, its front leg still bleeding from the wound during the chase. Despite the pain, it never took its eyes off the steel door, the point where danger could emerge at any moment. I don't understand, Sarah murmured, her voice choked. How can they want to kill a dog that much? Adam didn't turn around. Brave's not an ordinary dog. It's a canine unit trained in tactical intelligence programs, one of the first with the ability to detect biological and chemical explosives and more. It was once an escort dog for a witness during a covert operation to wipe out a terrorist organization in Eastern Europe. He looked at Emma. But what makes them want to erase Brave isn't just its capabilities. It's the information it carries. Markings, paths, codes, all encrypted biologically in its behavior and reflexes. They want to destroy the evidence, Sarah whispered. And all it takes is one bullet, Adam stated firmly, and everything ends. Meanwhile, Emma sat beside Brave, gently rubbing its head. She whispered into its ear, like telling a story. I know you're scared. I'm scared too, but I trust you won't let anyone hurt Mom. Right, Brave? Brave lifted its head, its eyes shining with a unique light, not the eyes of an animal, but of awareness, intellect, and unconditional courage. At that moment, the security system emitted an alert. A rapid beeping filled the room. Adam jerked in surprise. They found the camouflage device. 2 of them are cutting through the biometric lock. If they breach the first door, they'll have 30 seconds to reach the central hub. Sarah hugged Emma tightly. What do we do now? Adam drew a gun from his side. Hold the line. I'll block the hallway 3. Brave jumped to its feet. It moved in front of Adam, not barking, not growling, just staring as if saying, I'll go ahead. Adam bent down, placing a hand on Brave's head. Are you sure, partner? Brave let out a low growl, almost like a confirmation. Adam signaled to open hallway 4, a corridor leading straight to the technical door where the enemy was cutting the lock. Brave bolted ahead without hesitation. Despite limping, its run was full of power and speed like lightning in the night. No, Emma screamed. He can't go alone. Sarah pulled her close. Brave knows what to do, sweetheart. We have to trust him. In the dark hallway, Brave ran, its fur soaked with sweat and blood. Its breath was shallow, but its eyes remained sharp. It stopped in front of the technical door, where the sound of metal cutting echoed. Brave looked around, then gently crawled through a ventilation shaft on the left. On the other side of the door, 3 figures in dark camouflage suits were preparing to enter. One placed a hand on a silenced rifle, another checked a vibration sensor, and the third turned on an infrared camera to pinpoint targets inside. Just as they were about to step through the threshold, a roar echoed from the ceiling. Brave fell from the ventilation shaft like a bullet. Gunshots rang out, the bullets whizzing through the air. Brave dodged the first shot, then lunged straight at the gunman, using its full weight and sharp teeth to bring him down. Blood splattered against the walls. The other two hesitated, but Brave didn't stop. Despite being shot in the rear shoulder, it rushed forward, tackling the second man, biting down hard on his gun arm and pulling him away, making him scream in pain. The last one hurriedly pulled out a stun grenade, but it was too late. Adam arrived, shooting him in the hand. The room fell silent. All three enemies lay motionless. Adam knelt next to Brave, holding its bleeding body. "You did great, warrior. You're not just a Edbo, Asin, your hope." Brave let out a soft whimper. Its eyes were cloudy but still fixed on the corridor, where Emma was running toward them. "Brave!" the little girl shouted, tears streaming down her face. Sarah ran after her, heartbreaking, as she saw Brave lying there, struggling to breathe, blood seeping into its fur and onto the cold steel floor. Emma knelt beside Brave, her tiny hands trembling as she gently stroked its head. "Please don't go. I need you. Mommy needs you, please." Brave could no longer growl or move, but in that moment it lifted its head and gently placed it in Emma's palm. A small gesture, but it held all of its love, loyalty, and silent farewell. Adam looked at the wound. "We need to bandage it immediately. I have serum and breathing support equipment, but we need time." Sarah's voice caught in her throat. "We have to save Brave by any means." Emma buried her face in Brave's neck. "I won't let you go." The alarm turned green, signaling that the area was safe. The enemies had been neutralized. But now all that remained was the fragile life of Brave, the brave warrior who had sacrificed everything to protect the ones it loved. The dim light of the medical room and the underground station flickered weakly. Adam hurriedly connected an IV line to Brave's leg vein, while Sarah trembled as she wiped the blood off the thick fur. Although the bleeding had been temporarily stopped, Brave's body remained cold. Its breathing was becoming weaker, each breath seemingly about to break. Emma sat on the floor, holding Brave's head in her lap, her tiny hand gently stroking the tangled fur. "Uncle, don't leave me. You're so strong, right? You beat the bad guys and—" Her clear eyes were full of tears, her voice choked with emotion, but she continued to whisper, "I need you. I can't lose you." Adam was doing everything he could. Painkillers, antibiotics, advanced heart-lung support devices, emergency serum for working dogs. Everything had been prepared and administered correctly. But he knew that sometimes science isn't enough. Some souls need something greater. Love. Brave lay still, its eyes half closed. But just when Emma placed her small hand on its heart and sobbed, "If you wake up, I'll never leave you," something strange happened. Brave's heart started beating again, slow but strong. Adam's eyes widened at the monitor. Its heart's reacting. It hears her. Sarah burst into tears. "Thank God." Brave opened his eyes. The first thing it saw was Emma. In its gaze, no longer pain, but a faint yet clear light belief. Emma smiled through her tears. "You heard me, didn't you? I knew you would. You're my Brave." Brave let out a faint whine, a sound so fragile yet enough to break everyone's heart with emotion. It lifted its head a little, trying to wag its tail, just a slight movement, as if to say, "I'm still here, I haven't given up." Sarah hugged Emma tightly. "You saved it." "No," Emma shook her head. "It saved us first." A week later, in a small house on the outskirts of the city, no more bunkers, no more sirens, just the sound of birds singing and the breeze blowing gently through the garden. Brave was lying on a large cushion by the fireplace. Next to it was a full food bowl and a new collar engraved with the words, "Brave Family is Home." Emma was sitting on the floor drawing. The picture was of a little girl and a dog running under a rainbow. Her mother was brewing tea, smiling as she looked out the window. Adam, no longer in military uniform, was mowing the lawn outside, occasionally coming in to check. Brave stood up slowly, one step at a time, its wounds not fully healed, but enough to walk. It walked over to Emma, lay down beside her, and gently licked her hand. "You were named Brave because you're so courageous," Emma whispered, almost like a secret. But now I think you're more than that. You're family. Brave nuzzled its head into her shoulder gently, tenderly, like the hug of a closest friend. That night, when the whole family had gone to sleep, Brave sat by the window, gazing at the starry sky. Under the pale moonlight, it was no longer a wounded warrior or a witness to the brutal war. It was a member of the family, loved, alive, and free. 2 months later, a secret court trial for those who masterminded the terror attack was held. Brave appeared with Adam and legal experts. Thanks to its biological data and exceptional reflexes, Brave accurately identified the individuals connected to the underground network. The media was not allowed to publish any details, but those present knew this dog had not only saved a family, it had saved an entire community. After the trial, Brave was honored as a silent hero. But to Emma, it was simply her dog. One rainy day, just like the first day they met, Emma took Brave to the park. She looked up at the sky and softly said, "I once saw you in the rain. Remember? Back then I thought you needed me, but now I know. I need you." Brave let out a soft whine, a sound of agreement. Emma bent down and hugged its neck. "Thank you for staying alive, for fighting, for choosing to stay." In the misty park, a little girl and an old German shepherd, without words, only pure and eternal love. And so one journey ended, but the beginning of a family. When the first autumn rain fell again on the old street, people could still see the image of a little girl and an old German shepherd lying together under the tree, peaceful and quiet. No more chains, no more tears or wounds, only the pure love between a soul once abandoned and a small heart that reached out to save it. The story of Brave was not just a survival journey, but a testament to the power of compassion, courage, and the sacred bond between humans and animals. A 4-year-old girl with her pure heart did what the whole world had turned away from, seeing the pain of a living being and acting to change its fate. Brave, that name wasn't just about courage. It was hope, it was family. It was a reminder that sometimes a small act can change a whole life. Thank you for listening to this story. If you felt something from Brave's gaze, from Emma's small embrace, please share this video so the message of love can spread. Because out there are still many more Braves, waiting for someone like Emma.